Before the tragic story of Emmett Till shook the nation, there was Willie James Howard. His life was cut short in 1944 in a horrific act of racial violence that history has too often overlooked. Today, we honor his memory and uncover the story of a 16-year-old boy whose only crime was an act of innocent friendship. Willie James Howard was born on July 13, 1928, in the small town of Live Oak, Florida. He grew up in a segregated society dominated by Jim Crow laws, which institutionalized racial discrimination and violence. Despite the oppressive environment, Willie was known to be a kind, hardworking, and cheerful young man. He lived with his parents, who instilled strong values of responsibility and resilience. Like many African American families in the South, the Howards faced daily challenges but remained close-knit and supportive. Willie worked part-time to help support his family while attending school. In December 1943, during the Christmas season, Willie decided to write cards to his classmate, including a white girl named Cynthia Goff. Willie and Cynthia had developed a friendly acquaintance, and his card was a gesture of admiration and kindness. The Christmas card included a handwritten poem and expressions of innocent affection, saying, "I love your name. I love your voice. For a SH, sweetheart, you are my choice." In an era when racial segregation and strict social boundaries defined interactions between black and white individuals, this act was seen as a grave transgression by Cynthia's father, Mr. Phil Goff, a prominent local businessman. On January 2, 1944, Mr. Goff discovered Willie's Christmas card. Enraged, he and two other white men went to the Howard family's home. Armed and aggressive, they confronted Willie and his father, James Howard. The men forced both Willie and his father to come with them. They drove to the Suwannee River, a site that would become the scene of unimaginable cruelty. At the riverbank, Willie was bound, his hands and feet tied together. Mr. Goff accused Willie of overstepping racial boundaries by writing the card to his daughter. The men demanded that Willie either jump into the river himself or be shot. Fearing for his father's life and under immense duress, Willie complied. He was thrown into the icy waters of the Suwannee River, unable to save himself. James Howard, his father, was forced to watch helplessly as his son drowned to death. After the murder, James Howard was threatened with violence if he spoke out about what had happened. Fearing for his own life and the safety of his family, he fled the area, leaving behind his home and community. Despite the obvious brutality of the crime, no arrests were made. The local authorities, influenced by systemic racism and fear of retaliation, ignored the incident. Newspapers downplayed the story, framing it as a tragic accident rather than a lynching. The justice system, as was typical in the Jim Crow South, failed to hold anyone accountable. Willie James Howard's murder occurred during a time when racial violence was used as a tool to enforce white supremacy. His death is a stark reminder of the perils faced by African Americans who were perceived to have crossed racial boundaries. Though his story was overshadowed by other events, such as the 1955 murder of Emmett Till, it remains a crucial chapter in the history of racial violence in America. Both cases involved young black boys whose lives were taken because of baseless racial hatred, and both serve as tragic examples of the unchecked brutality of the era. Willie James Howard's story is not just a tale of injustice, but also a call to remember the lives lost to racial violence. It reminds us of the systemic oppression faced by African Americans and the ongoing need to confront racism in all its forms. Today, efforts to uncover and share Willie's story aim to honor his memory and educate future generations about the injustices of the past, ensuring that such atrocities are never forgotten.